Hello, everybody, and welcome to yet another Catalyst Conundrum. This one is episode 13, how to see the patterns of the experience around you. How do you see the patterns of the experience around you? Are you spending way too much time focusing on the minutia, uh, the moss, and not looking at the trees? How do you figure out what to look at the trees and what to look for? That's what we're going to cover on this Catalyst Conundrum. I want to reset. Please let the repetition sink in instead of trying to make this be a resistance. It ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so. What you know for sure is to focus in on what's in front of you. What you don't know is, hey, I don't even know how to go about exploring the environment around me. It ain't so embrace more of that. That's the curiosity part. Ease up on the what you know for sure, because it probably just ain't so. So as a reminder, we're going to talk about the 7 principles. It's the experience stupid. What does that mean to you now versus what does it mean to you in the past? Lead with you. Please talk about your own experiences. You have to master this stuff yourself first before you can worry about talking about it with other people. I need your help to do it because I need help to be able to master it myself too. You have to have courage. It takes a lot of guts to be able to do these kinds of things, especially when you're wondering, oh, I don't know how to do it. I got to trust the process. It's a creative process. Part of what we're going to be talking about here is the help that I can do to make the process more clear. We have to curate conflict. I was debating about having an episode about conflict, but I thought this was more appropriate. And then you got to be an orchestrator. In other words, develop tools to connect the dots. The reason that I'm pushing a lot of these things out now is I'm reflecting on how much work I had to do and pulling 2 all-nighters back to back versus the productivity I'm getting elsewhere. We have to really, I have to help connect the dots more. So I'm trying to take ownership of what I can do better. And it's not about getting it right. It's not about getting it right. It's about being right. I think a lot of times the perfection meter in your head is way too high. If you just lead with yourself and produce things that you make observations on and know that they're going to get massaged over time and relax about that, that's the whole process. I thought about also another video. So I was debating about what kind of what I should put together. So I need to do one on conflict. I also need to do one on sort of the creative process and how in a band people will just work on one part, just like the bass riff. Boom, 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 boom. And who does that? The bassist does it. Why would the lead guitarist work on the bass part? But that's what we're doing is we're trying to do all the different parts and no one's doing their own part. And it's just a simple little thing. The drums are boom, 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 boom. There's the bass and the drums. See how it all comes together? Everything comes together when you focus on getting it right, not on individually being right. So let's break this down and let's do something that probably we should have done very early on. Let's look at the definition of experience to give us a frame of reference on what to focus in on and know where to look. When we look at the noun, the passive view of the language, it's practical contact with and observation of facts and experience. Okay, I don't know how that's more informative. The knowledge or skill acquired by experience over time. Okay, so experience is knowledge, but this isn't this weird? The definition uses the definition within itself. This I hate. So clearly experience is a word that's difficult to define. Over a period of time, especially that gained in a particular profession or someone at work. An event or occurrence that leaves an impression on someone. Huh. So that's interesting. How do we weave these ideas together? But then, oh, look, It's also a verb. How cool is that? Verbs in action. See, I'm trying to connect, by the way. Hopefully you noticed that I'm trying to connect the dots to other things. Encounter or undergo an event or occurrence. The company is experiencing difficulties. Don't we experience work all the time? Feel an emotion, an experience to experience the opportunity of excitement. The goal for us should be is to make sure that we're talking about experience that clicks off all of these different variables so we can make our work more relatable. It's the experience. Stupid. Stay focused on that. And again, simple is hard, but making things simple is really, really hard. So let's practice that. What I want you to do is picture you being caught in the rain. Can you picture that? We've all done it before in a shopping center or something like that. Now, when I was practicing, so what I do is I role play this stuff out before I actually do it. And when I ask these questions, I ponder them myself and I try to wonder myself what immediately comes to mind. So when you say get caught in the rain, what immediately comes to mind? Because I put this picture in because I was just going to ask a question on a blank screen, and let me show you what immediately came to my mind. I kid you not, this is exactly what popped into my head. If you like pina coladas, get caught in the rain. If you're not into yoga, if you have half a brain, I swear to God, that isn't that weird. Yeah. So anyway, back to the meme I was trying to get at is that whole experience. You're in a shop, you're going to do errands, and I don't know about you guys, I hate doing errands. It's really a drag. You pull out, it's kind of cold. You pull into the driveway. The parking is pretty far. You have to walk all the way into the store, and then it starts raining. What do you do? What do you do? Do you walk? What is the way that you're going to get the wettest, the least, and the least wet, I guess is the best way to say it. What would you do? So what's interesting about that is that's an interesting question. So of course you can say, whoa, be prepared with an umbrella. You don't have an umbrella. Let's stop that. Come on. Quit trying to cheat and, be like Captain Kirk and re-rig the scenario. The purpose of the scenario here is to do thinking and to set up an experience. And I want you to be at the same level of relatability. Okay. We all want to be relatable here. So here's the interesting thing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a video. And what I've done is I've done the work. So I've literally done the exercise that I'm going to ask you to do later. So there's exercises here. But right now, I just want you to immerse yourself into being experiential. Do not try to overthink what I'm about to share with you. Do not try to learn everything or anticipate or anything like that. It's going to make your cycles, it's going to make your energy time out. If you just absorb this part for a little bit and know that the homework is coming later, and the homework is to help you build new muscles, you can relax a bit. So I'm going to show you a 3-minute video, and I'm going to let it run end to end, or actually it's 4 minutes. But I want you to pay attention to it because the question here, is it worth running in the rain? And what we're going to watch is a condensed episode. So it took probably 90 minutes to find a short example here because I don't want it to go on and on and on and on. A short example of a video of Mythbusters. And if you don't know that show, you're in for a treat. So let's watch that together. By the way, while I get that set up, what did you think of that? Was that funny to you? If not, well, it was funny to me. All right, so let's watch this together. Blah, 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 blah.
The myth that you stay drier if you run in the rain.
Basically, it's a bit of practical advice. Run if it's raining and you won't get as wet than if you're walking. Seems to make sense to me.
Common sense?
So what do you think? What right now, what is your strategy? Do you run when it rains on you in the car, or do you walk?
Twin of the Mythbusters let that get in the way of a challenge.
The idea is someone walking through the rain will stay in the rain longer, but the rain's only falling on their head and shoulders. Whereas someone running through the rain is actually picking up rain on their entire front.
So what? We just wait for the next rainy day and go for a stroll? No, sirree. The Mythbusters will need controlled conditions.
We're going to have to be really careful about this. It seems like a simple thing.
It seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah, but there are actually a lot of factors to consider. You've got, the velocity of the rain. You've got the speed that you're running. You've got all these different things to factor in there.
The setup, an indoor course 100 feet long, which Adam and Jamie will walk, then run through in a downpour of homemade rain. They'll wear identical cotton coveralls, which will be weighed after each test to see how much rain they've soaked up. Now, all that means they'll have to manufacture some very precise precipitation. It's time to walk the line and find an answer to this age-old mystery. Walking. Our high-speed camera, running at 1,000 frames per second, captures every single droplet. Adam and Jamie will walk the course twice, once with wind, once without.
And stop.
Each take is timed. Then the coveralls are straight off and onto the scales.
785 grams. What was the original weight? 757. Cool. So 18 grams of water.
And the results faithfully recorded. Now, Jamie's turn to be under the weather. Both walks clock in at around 18 seconds, and the coveralls have soaked up almost the same amount of water. But what happens when Adam and Jamie up the pace? That can't be right.
798, significantly more.
On Jamie's run, the difference isn't as great.
793.
But the raw data is still pointing to an answer that flies in the face of science.
The results aren't what I expected at all, actually. The numbers are really close. We're only talking about a matter of a dozen grams here and there. So when we average it all out, I think it's going to show that running, actually you get wetter, strangely. What's the final result? What's the verdict?
Better to walk than run.
Really?
Yeah, it was very clear. Over a 100-foot course with 2 to 3 inches per hour rain delivery, we got more than twice the rain per foot running than we did with walking.
Is this one busted?
This one's busted. Fact is that it's better to walk than to run in the rain.
Interesting, huh? So is that surprising to you? Now it sets up all kinds of questions, doesn't it? Like, why is that the case, or the like? But let's go through some of the scenes. There's, they had an introduction part. They talked about, they had a conversation where both of them shared ideas about, hey, let's think this problem through. Let's give it an identity. Let's figure out the variables we're going to have to test over a period of time. They created an environment that was pretty precise, frankly, on how they were going to test it. They did an exercise. They timed it. They weighed it. They measured it. They recorded it. They repeated it. Then they ran. So they repeated the same exercise multiple times. You might consider that tedious. I would think that they think that this is super easy, right? They recorded those observations, same with the same system, the same materials, which led them to come up with conclusions. And look at how they organized their conclusions with a whole bunch of facts. Everything came together nice and neat. So clearly there's an architecture here also. Not only is there a method to it, but there's a way in which the TV show decided to deliver that information. And if you look at this, what's the first thing that pops into your mind when you look at this layout? I'm hopeful you see a storyboard. So storyboarding it upon itself is way different than what the message is to begin with. So you have to go through and spend the time to actually think, how do you talk about the issue that you want to talk about? How do you get it really tight to where people get curious to go, yes, that's an issue or a problem we're solving. Is it worth running in the rain? How come no one else has done this before? You'd think this is simple, but if it were so simple, then other people would have done it, right? Then what did they do? They figured out a way to do it. They spent a lot of time on creating an environment. Note, I'd like you to note, in the video, in reality, do you think that they spent more time creating the environment versus doing the experiment, the activity? What do you think they spent more time doing? I'll ask you. If you don't set up your right environment, if you don't get your thinking clean about what you're factoring in, all this other stuff here, all these other activities are meaningless, completely meaningless, because at the end of the day, you won't have the nice structure to create a conclusion in terms of following a process. Okay, so question number one, what I'd like you to do is I want you to practice documenting. Describe what your experience was end to end with the Mythbusters video. If you don't have a structure to format, make up your own structure. And then let's talk about what our experiences were and maybe what kinds of tools and instruments that we need to do. But in order to do it, you have to have something to contribute, something tangible for us to all react to so that we can learn together. By not doing these exercises, you're punishing yourself, frankly, because you're not going to be able to contribute. If you do these exercises with the lens of trying to build new muscles, then you will be able to contribute. If you do it like, how is this going to help me make slides? You're not thinking correctly, okay? So the purpose of this exercise is simply to help us simulate a specific experience that all of us go through so that we can compare notes. That's how this works. So let me give you some examples of this working in real life. How does this Mythbusters video relate to real life? So I'm going to share you some summary examples, and I want you to ask yourself for each one of these, maybe ask in this video while you're doing it, what more information do you think you need from me? And ask me in the video while it's going on in the moment. Okay. As your head in gear, you're shifted from, hey, that was interesting, that was an exercise, you asked me to document my thoughts. Now what I want you to do is listen to this, but I want you to listen with the zone of reacting. What information do you need from me as I tell you these things? Keep in mind, I'm trying to keep these examples short because I have a exercise I'm building out later when we get to example number 3 is actually a real life exercise that more simulates where I see one of our biggest challenges. Okay? That makes sense, right? So just let it happen then, please. What's happening here? What do you think is happening here? Pay attention to the body language. Are people engaged? What you're looking at here are executive leaders of different sales enablement departments from different companies. And this is a meeting that was actually held at Tiffany's. And what's happening at this moment in time is we're about to have a vote. So we're providing readouts of work groups of different tracks. This is an executive from Waste Management. This guy here is from Cintas. This guy here is from FM Media. She over here, she's from Fujitsu. This guy over here is from Equinox. This guy right here is from Tiffany's. This guy's from Microsoft. The point is, all of these people here are from a variety. This guy right here is from Lincoln Financial. Different industries, different backgrounds, all executives. What we're about to do is vote on a structure for how they want to view sales enablement moving forward. And this structure they're agreeing to, hopefully you can see it here because I've done a video on this, the business within a business. That's what we're agreeing to right here. And I gave them multiple options to vote from, and this is the one that they picked. Now, all of this stuff matters because you want people to be engaged, and the way that you get people engaged is if they've rolled up their sleeves and actually done some of the work themselves. This is what makes light bulbs go off. You don't just teach people something, you have to help them experience it. And how do we help them experience it? We had rules. These rules are similar rules. Psst. That's a hint for exercise 3. Psst. Psst. That's a hint for exercise 3. They had similar rules. And my hint is, do these rules sound similar to principles? The rules are, this is your counsel. Focus on what's working. You know, the dialogue on that is don't concentrate on what isn't working. Patience, grasshopper. I'll add that one there. Challenge. We want you to challenge concepts, not people, and be aggressive with the challenging of it. Psst, that's conflict. We want you to recognize you have unconscious competence. That's the reason why we're asking you to just do and be active. Now look at all of the things here that these teams generated. They didn't have a lot of time to produce, yet they were able to produce these kinds of slides by following a structured approach and doing the exercise exactly the same, created insights that allowed the group of people to see things that they didn't see before. So they got to a moment where they could be coachable and agree on something at the same page. Now, my observation is you as a team are resisting doing these exercises, making slides like this. Just look at what this is, people, process, technology. This is their view. This is their view. We even asked them to write up a definition of what sales enablement is. And just write it. Don't overthink it. Just write it down. And then know that it's not about getting it right. It's not about being right. It's about getting it right. Are you really locked in on that? Or are you too worried about other variables? And when you go off and do it by yourself, are you allowing yourself to overthink? By the way, here's another hint. Look at this. What's noted here? Like, pay attention to what things are on the board. Level 1, level 2, level 3. Is this possibly Act 1, Act 2, Act 3? I don't know. What do you think? All right, that's example number 1. Now let's do sharing example part 2. Another real life situation. In this particular case, I actually have a slide. So I was hired by a company to help them install a social media execution model. And so in this case, that's one area. In this case, I led with technology because everybody was just throwing technology at the problem. And here's another thing, and you could do this and you could do that. It was completely out of control. So I said, look, the purpose of what we're going to do here is to share. So I got hired by this company to share all the social media things that I learned by doing this, the Sales Enablement Society, to them. Walter, this was that SDLC engagement that I wanted you to help with and unpack. But what's interesting is people's expectations are so rigid about how social media works, but it just doesn't work the way that they expect it to do. And I created a bunch of exercises where I would literally in the meeting post things on LinkedIn, and then we would go back and double check and see what happened to help them see what the real life. experience was. And one of the things that we did is we broke down this framework and said, look, these are the components. Your audience would be all of the people that you communicate in LinkedIn. The medium that we're going to do, we're talking about social, but social is so broad. We're only talking about LinkedIn. We're not going to talk about Twitter. I don't give a shit about how Twitter does it or anything else. We're only talking about LinkedIn. And what we're going to do is we're going to have a standard way of how we codify links. So we're going to use Bitly, and we're only going to use Bitly. And the tools that we're going to use to encode our information, the encoding stage, we're going to use Bitly as a way to make the links so we can track them, and we're going to use Zoom. And then in it, we had modules, which, by the way, I've sent you guys the video modules for all of these things. I had individual modules where I broke down every little assignment in LinkedIn. So there was the reference model of 10 things to do in LinkedIn. And then there was experiences. And then I recorded videos in different buckets and organized those all on a website. So that was sort of the delivery experience. And then I said, we're only going to use Zoom to record video, only going to use Zoom. Hopefully our experience right now, we're seeing that it's hard to open different things from different parts. And some of us are using one format, some of us are using another. I said, we're going to standardize on that. And then we're only going to use, we're going to get our messages only using Google Apps. That's it. Those are the rules. And what we did is in this exercise, I had them, we did a setup. If you can see here, this is the workflow published on the board here. It's too difficult for people to hold it in documents. They hold things too rigidly. If you look over here, there's different stages, boxes, and that helps navigate people. Look, by the way, people did their own toast and put it on the board, and we all looked at it. Look at how happy people are. These are all experiences when you do things and make slides and share them with other people. When you make them all about yourself and just having me review it, you're missing the point entirely. This is a group activity. We're a team and we need to be able to do it together. If you're overthinking this stuff, all you do is bring everybody down. So this is an example, another example of what this looks like. Okay. Now I'm going to go into one in a little bit more detail. This is a shared example that you're going to have an assignment on. So the two are, here are some patterns. What are you observing? What's common? What am I sharing in terms of the lecture? Now I'm going to ask you to start applying it. And the application isn't right or wrong. Get that out of your head. The purpose of the exercise is to experience things together so we can all share what we see, so we create a better view of insight. And I'm going to share with you in this example, it's going to be more complex because I'm going to share with you things that I published and things that I struggle with getting the ball over the hump. So this is a experience room. I had an experience room at the 2018 Sales Enablement Society conference. And what I did here, by the way, for those of you who are in Townsend, I did the exact same thing of having we're going to enter this world and this is what we're going to cover. So what I'm highlighting here is what I want when you guys enter this room, we're going to be answering, or you should be asking these questions: who, what, when, where. And this is the synthesis of everything that goes on. Okay. Now, I want you to be able to write down this site so you can go and check it yourself. I'll put the link into the email, but I may forget it. So I want you to have it. But what I did is I summarized as best I could to create the findings, and I'll give you feedback of what I've got for it. But by the way, you don't get feedback unless you make outputs. You cannot get feedback to make things better unless you create outputs. So that's another sort of example. Things don't get more clear unless you generate material. You have to create slides. You have to have a focus of what you're producing. And the more focus of what you're producing, the better off or the better feedback that you could get. Just need to be paying attention to what it is that we're trying to accomplish. So before I go into this, I want you to describe, I published this before I even went to this to the event. I said, look, I'm going to have an experience room and I'm struggling. I'm asking people how you can help me communicate the experience, but here is how I design it. I want you to have an insight. For you to have an insight, you need to be able to have an environment with which that insight can flourish so that you can maybe not be so rigid with how you're thinking about things, let things flow. You have to have a natural flow and get into flow with people. You have to have content, so there has to be reports, tangible things for you to react to. It has to be interactive or else you won't be engaged. And all of the things the approaches have to follow are proven. They must be proven. So what I did is I said, this is how it's going to work. In the environment, that's this part here, stations help organize the flow of information. So the environment is stationed or chunked, organized. This is an example of a gated sales process or any kind of gated approach. Follow, flow. Information is ordered based on group learning dynamics. So what's interesting about this exercise is because everything was on tape, I rearranged the stations based on each interaction. So I would bring in batches of people, I would observe them making it, and I'd make a tweak here and there. And over time, based on all the tweaks, because everything was organized and structured, I was able to get it into a flow where I didn't need to attend the room. People in the room would train themselves. So that's experiential learning, and getting the whole idea of education is, sort of rigid and classroomy. I just don't buy it anymore. I have too much evidence and observation to the contrary. If those are your expectations, you're not gonna be able to thrive in the new economy. I'm sorry, it's just not gonna work. Content, there's too much complexity. Things are happening too quickly. Content, all of the information associated with each station is published. So it's I published overwhelming information at first, and then what I had people do is interact with it until they saw the patterns. Does this sound like links and nodes and the whole design thinking toast process? Interactive. What I did is made sure that things were engaging, and I put hard questions on there. That's the why and the curiosity. And then proven, I just said, this is how it works. And people saw by actually engaging and doing. And of course, the first couple times through it, it's hard for people to engage, but you have to engage or else the model doesn't work. So let's go and look at this site here together, and let's try to capture what was delivered. Let's see, how do I get out of this? Number 3, there we go. So what I did is I tried to capture this into an experience room and into experience website. And it's frustrating because trying to put this together is hard, because people want to put what they know for sure that just ain't so, and aren't curious with you about what you're trying to build. So what I'm trying to do is build a flow in terms of the design of the website that mimics the experience. So this is the home page. Now, I don't have this navigation right, but since we have the content, if we were iterating and reacting to it and talking about what our experiences are, how we're reacting to this information, then I could evolve it. And this is where I get a huge gap. I need help interacting and evolving it. But this is what I did. Here's that picture. And I think this picture captures the moment, but maybe there's better ones that capture the moment. I tried to, provide an orientation. Here's, here's some of the findings. And then there's the business problem. In the digital world, you're going to either innovate, transform, or be disrupted. And here's evidence for each one of these different scenarios. I tried to say, look, enabling organic growth. Here's a what's possible moment. This is the steps that you follow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And laid it out this way. And there's, write-ups associated here. Then, here's a view from the top. So you can see here's station 1, published a lot of information. I had whiteboards here to let people dialogue on it. So this is evidence from a bunch of different sources and trying to synthesize this. I've made a slide of trying to articulate what this experience looks like. This is super, super hard. This is why I need a lot of dialogue to be able to take a phenomenon and turn it into something concrete that people can relate to. But we captured the best we can. Here's my picture of what I was trying to represent here. But this is my version of it. I think Tim could do a much better job of it. But these are little chunks that are really, really important to make things more clear. And then here's this picture, and can we represent it that way? Here's different. This was, by the way, this preceded the commercial ratio. So here's work that we could do in the commercial ratio, organize the commercial ratio by different sectors and say, here's what the commercial ratio is. I laid this out as this growth return on the selling system. It's almost the commercial ratio. And said, look, here's what it looks like by sector and how poorly different sectors are performing. And then say, look, here's what's really going on. Here's the friction point. Who actually owns the number? Then here's the hidden cost. So you can see everything has these modules that you can click down and click up into. And that's just this chapter. Then we have, look, there's more, value is co-created. So this was a station here. I had people put in their own comments. How do people co-create value? Is this understood? That's where this graphic emerged from. We've all seen this. There's the value communications model, which we need to be working from because it's a tool. I've broken this down. You've got all of these different variables here. There's articles and other things like that. And by the way, Tim, you took these. Do you still have the articles from my old website? We need to get those back up again to help people understand the science between things and working on application. So that's the view from the top. Look, there's more. What's the ROI of sales? Here's a case study for CA. Wasn't this told in one of our webinars? Here's your audience review of the system. What executive buyers think. All content that we can be reusing. We just need to work on storyboarding and editing it out. Huge gaps in empathy. So we've been talking about empathy. Look, we try to put pictures, called it separate ways, worlds apart. Pictures, stories. Here's an example. Have people comment on so that they engage in it. This is a story about an exercise, a day workshop that we did at Forrester. And look, by the way, people are engaged. Isn't there an architecture here? And we had challenged, by the way, rules, rules. Had a hypothesis statement. This hypothesis statement was your company does not know your customers well enough. So this already, the whole day was designed to be challenging. And this is a piece of how we're reassembling all of these different parts. So that's this section. Focus on outliers. So there was another section here where I had a bunch of information of readouts from different reports. different findings from different engagements that I did. You know, here's sort of a shift in terms of baseline performers, corporate car wash sales. I didn't build that module out well enough. Then there's the go to customer section and why this needs to be different. And I don't think I built that one out. So you can see there's some that I just didn't build out or finish. Then there's this part. I was a placeholder. What is perceived value? We had a picture there. I was struggling to figure it out, but at least I put stuff down, you know, and try to engage. What I found is that I just don't have enough horsepower myself to make this work and to document experiences. But the point is, I try. And this is what we need to do is we need to try. Look, can we break down sections? What's happening in each part? Psst, look, here's, you know, sort of an information architecture or a layout or format. So these are the things that I need help doing, and recognizing that in some of the order, we're not going to be able to do it. But look, what the process of what's possible. This is sort of the underpinnings of the what's possible story that we're now selling 2 years later at Acuvia. Where does it come from? How do people collaborate? Blah, 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 right? So there's a bunch of pictures to prove the point. So every single one of these things has their own story diamond. So that's where I'm at. I need help of unpacking that stuff and making it more clear for everybody else. Sorry, I'm trying to get back to that's what you will find in that, and it's you know, doing the layout, all of that other stuff. What we want is to be able to convey an experience. How do you do that? How do you do that? So what I try to do is think about how can we find ways to chunk this out. I think if we can understand the purpose of gates, gated information, that there's detail within each gate, to not skip the gates. The thing that I get so frustrated with is when people skip the gates. The gates are there on purpose to make things easier. When people fight it, it makes the entire process go slow. And if you don't follow the gates, you get crappy output because everybody focuses on activity. So question number 2, how can you help me describe the environment that I just outlined? So that's an open-ended question. I think in order for us to build the skills we require as a team, not individually, as a team, we need to do things as a team. And one of the things that I'm going to ask you to do is to build the process of storyboarding. Storyboarding. How do you break this video right now into parts? Just like I did with the Mythbusters video. That's your exercise here. Take this, make screenshots, rearrange it, and do it. I know how long it takes. I did it for the Mythbusters video up here. Just take screenshots. I literally did that with the videos. You can literally do the exact same thing. I made individual ones first, and I walked them through with you what I observed. And then I said, boom, here's that. I want you to do literally the exact same thing. How did I kick it off? And then what was going on in each one? What was the purpose? And in the structure, what was followed? And share what you've learned. Just do that exercise, because it's going to be difficult, I think, for us to produce the things that we need to produce if we don't concentrate on seeing the overall environment. So to wrap it up, this Catalyst conundrum was how to see the patterns of the experience around you. What we covered is that there's rules. Then there's a definition part. There's a level set, gut check, that's making it relatable. There's a storyboarding process with an example. I'm leading forward and showing you exactly what it is that we're going to be doing. Then I'm giving you a bunch of different then I'm asking you to practice putting down an experience in place. practice documenting things. Do we even have the tools to be able to measure? Like, for example, are we measuring time right? Do we have weights? Do we have scales to measure the things that we need to be measuring? Or do we have a structure where we can do the creating the environment that we're looking in so that we know what we're looking at? Do we understand our roles? Because in each one of these things, everybody's got a different role. You got the stopwatch person, you got the weigher, you got the people recording things. Are we aware of our roles? Or are we just sort of like, just sort of doing things? So the whole idea is, how do we get more focused and more disciplined? And that's really what I'm trying to do here. Is that's why I'm trying to ask you to do the exercise. Then I've got some examples. Here's one example of of what I see as a pattern that I can't describe, that I struggle to get out on paper. But it's a recurring pattern. It's very similar to this pattern. I see there's a lot of similarities. Psst, there's also similarities to the making toilet paper one. There's a lot of similarities here. Here's another example. This time I led with a concept, but still did the same thing. Exercises, people making toast, people reacting things, people being happy when they get to react to how other people reacted. That's the amazing thing. You know that happens because you get excited by it. Why won't you make slides so that other people can react to them? That's the currency, and this is what we all want. Oh my God, this is awesome. We've got this new idea. Then I went through an example where I did documentation, and every one of these people here had great experiences going through the experience room. I'm struggling to get the details out, just like we're struggling to get the outputs out of, this is the same phenomenon as, we all enjoyed the hang gliding exercise, right? That was an engineered, architected environment for an experience. How do we get the details out? Or we all went through the exercise of how does change actually happen? Where's our evidence? Where's our outputs? What do we learn from it? Or for some of us, we have the experience in Townsend. Do you think the Townsend experience was set up similarly with this kind of structure? Or probably more structure, right? Since it was paid for. So these are the things that we need to observe. And so that's our exercise. The purpose of the exercise is to break this video down into parts so that we can learn by doing and learning from each other, by all of us reacting to the same things at the same time, so that we have the ability to have these kinds of experiences. Thank you very much. I look forward to hearing your feedback.